Ready? All right, let me call to order the January 2025 Southbury Zoning Commission meeting. Let's all stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will seat Marty in place of Dominic and Jay in place of David. So you guys are real tonight. All right, new business. Application number 25-0106Z, petition for zone map change pursuant to zoning regulations, section 15, zone map amendment at 33 Bremer Road. If that's you, Gail, please.
For the record, I'm Gail McTaggart from the law firm Seek Forecasting Department, and I represent this salon. This salon is own this property. I'm sorry, I'm not sick, but for some reason I have a cough, so it's happening. Yeah. Where do you want me, over here? You can be over there. Okay. I'm gonna hand you an application, petition for a zone change, to change the zone line on this piece of property that cuts through the property. Has been filed, but I made one correction to it, so I'm just gonna hand you all a corrected letter. It just corrects the acreage on the first page. The rest of it's exactly as it was submitted. So, and I'm here with, around the back here, I'm here with Megan Miller from Civil One, who's the project manager that's involved in the application. This property is in the Salford Village District, and therefore, and it's in the planning area 3 of that district. I think some of you remember that the zoning regulations created a village district for that zone, and that the 2006 Plan of Conservation and Development for the Salford District is incorporated in part into that regulation. So we took a good look at that, and the plan is to try to develop this property. It sits as part of the property is residential, R30, and part of the property is B1A, commercial, right now. So I'll have Megan show you what we propose to do, and she can show you where the boundary is now and where we'd like to change it.
Good evening, again for the record, Megan Miller with Civil One. As you can see on the plan, I highlighted 2 areas. So this existing yellow line is the existing zone. It runs parallel with Southford Road, and here is Burma Road. Our proposal is to move the zone boundary north towards Southford Road, about 59 feet here, north, and then over here is 117 feet. And really the understanding was that this area is commercial, and then this area is residential. On the property is extensive wetlands. So these wetland areas right here really takes up a lot of the property to the east and limits the buildable area. So by doing this, by moving the zone boundary, we're really creating a lot more residential area that would have access solely from Burma Road. And that because of the wetlands, we needed to move this area to have larger or usable lots, really, because of the wetland area. By doing this as well, it increases the buffer we have for the Southford Plan of Conservation. There's a 40-foot buffer between the commercial zone and the B1A zone and the residential zone. So by moving this, we're actually limiting the commercial development that can be closer to Burma Road, which provides further protection from the existing residents on Burma Road as well. The total area of the property is 8.97 acres. And by moving this zone, we would have 4.3 acres in the commercial and 4.67 acres in the residential. On our packet on page 3 is really this a highlighted area of this buffer area. This is a schematic too for a potential commercial development. But this green area that's highlighted is this vegetated buffer that is 40 feet away from the zone. And the yellow is the existing buffer that there is right now with the current zone boundary location. And then the red line is, again, our proposed zone boundary. So again, we're limiting the commercial development, really putting it closer to Southford Road, which is where it should be, for the Southford Design District, while also providing residential buffer for the residents on Burma Road.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So we've spent some time looking at how the property can be developed, and we've had a couple of meetings with Jordan trying to work that out. The plan is, the first step is to get the zone boundary in a better location on this property. The next application would be to come in and have the boundary line change so it's precisely on the new boundary, on the new zone. So there'll be one piece of property in one zone and another piece of property in another zone, instead of the boundary line going down the middle, which it does right now. So right now, the property is bisected by that. The history, the title history is difficult because on some of the deeds, it discusses this as like one piece of property, but then it has another paragraph that said it's made up of two pieces. So whether it's two pieces or one piece, we're going to change it to move the boundary line. So it'll either be a first cut or it'll be a new boundary line that'll be exactly coincide with this location that we put on this. It definitely helped to expand the residential area. If you look at the diagram that we did on page 3, you can see that where the buffer was before was the yellow area, and it's moved, so it's pushed, given more area to the residential, and they're providing a better, what the zoning regulations and the POCD call transition, a transition between the commercial and the residential. So we think it's positive. The plan would be to put a commercial building and probably with apartments over the top. That's not what we're applying for now, but we're just trying to show that there's some feasibility to doing this. And to divide the property on the residential side in maybe a maximum of 3 lots. So it's really a small project. Most likely, we'll be using a plan development unit to do the commercial side in order to get all those apartments over the top, which we think is a really good idea. And those apartments would be naturally affordable, small apartments, so they'd be positive for the affordable housing plan in South Barium. Would be positive. So this is first step, but before we can do any of that, we need to get the zone line fixed. So that's what we're here for.
Okay, all right. So we will, since we have to change the zone line with public hearing, we'll set the public hearing for February.
Okay.
Refer to planning, and hopefully we can take care of everything next month.
And referral to planning?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Notify COG as well.
Pardon?
Notify COG as well.
Well, yeah. How close are we to Oxford?
It's not,
No, probably not, yeah, the river's pretty far away, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, all right, but it still has to go to COG, and, right. All right, next month,
Thank you.
we'll see you, thank you. All right, public hearings. Application number 24-1106C, application for a special exception soil extraction permit, 180 Lower Fish Rock Road, Southbury.
Good evening. My name's Brian. I'm already breaking stuff. My name's Brian Asteriak. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor with B&B Engineering. I'm here representing the owner of this property, Richard Yarish. It's about a little over a half acre in the R20 zone. It's uphill as Lake Zor, although it's several hundred feet away. We do have a plan. Can I borrow it? Mine's in the car. Oh, I thought this was the room fixture. Thank you, Nate.
That's right.
So there's an existing three-bedroom home on the property. It was built in the 30s. It's a relatively small building. If you've looked at the plans, and you can see on this plan, there's a lot of contours in the backyard. It drops down very quickly, almost on a one-to-one slope down towards Lake Zor. Lake Zor is another few hundred feet off of the actual property. So what the owner wants to do is flatten out a section behind the property in order to just get some manageable area to use as a backyard. In addition, there is some continuous erosion problems that occur on this slope because it is so steep, so he'd like to fix those while he's there. In order to do this, what you see in green there is a proposed retaining wall, and it ranges anywhere from about 2 feet to, at its highest, 27 feet. It's a good-sized wall, obviously. And essentially, all this is flattening out or having a moderate slope coming off of the walkout side of this house, coming out about 34 feet, and about a 5% slope. And what you end up with a complete fill is 27 feet in its highest place. He has selected an Atlas large block system. It would be an engineered wall, obviously. There wouldn't be a lot of complication in installing this because the earthwork occurs as you bring in the material. So there'd be some minor earthwork when you set the initial stones, and then as you bring in the material, you would build the wall up higher. So we do have a large amount of soil erosion measures on this plan, including silt fence and hay bales, a construction entrance, some specifications, and a sequence, but it actually could be done relatively uncomplicated if it's done properly. And the owner here has had experience with excavation. He owned an excavation company for many years. Right now he's a business owner in Seymour, so he's well aware of how to take care of a project like this. We do have approval from the health department. We don't need to go to wetlands because there are no wetlands on this property, and we're not within the regulated area of Lake Zor. So we're here because excavation and fill required a special permit from this commission. I will leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the health department, so it's not gonna affect their septic system or?
No, so the septic system is down over here. It is a compliant septic system. So we did put an application in, and it did get approved. And everything is obviously far enough away from the septic system to comply.
Any other questions?
This is, no, I was just wondering if this was subject to like first light jurisdiction or anything like that.
I don't believe it is because we're so far away from Lake Zor.
Okay.
What do you
estimate the length of time you're gonna be doing this?
So it's gonna depend on how fast you can get the material in there. But this can be done in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. If,
So I asked you about the length of time you thought that
the
the
length.
project would take, yeah.
Right, so, again, it's dependent on how fast you can get the material in and where that's coming from. But if you have a steady source of material coming in, you can get this done in 2 to 3 weeks.
Do we have any jurisdiction of knowing where the material's coming from? The quality of the material?
It's not something in our zoning regulations. However, you know, a stipulation that it would come from a reputable yard or has been tested to some degree. Typically something that wetlands handles in a lot of their fill
There's no wetlands here,
applications.
so, yeah.
But it's not something that typically gets called out in our zoning
I'm more
regulations.
concerned, well, there are all kinds of material that can come in. Structurally, you want the right material. We don't want dirty dirt,
No, of course.
okay, so.
I think it behooves the owner
We
not
have to
to.
have some sort of chain of custody to know where this material is coming from, I would think.
I would think the owner could stipulate to get some sort of record of where the material comes from. And
Each truck's gonna have a batch ticket with its load, so a stipulation that those are collected, even if it's a stipulation that an engineer is involved in the project or it's reported on to some capacity to either my office or to this commission.
Yeah.
Having the batch tickets be consistent with that would at least give us an idea of where the material's coming from and what they're using on site.
Okay. And being that the wall is 29 feet high or 27 feet high, whatever, I assume this would be, you'll have some sort of engineering document on file, engineered document?
yeah, they need to get a building permit for something like this. The wall's been semi-engineered to get quotes from, they're getting it from Atlas Concrete. If this gets approved, the next step would be to actually get an engineer to design this thing, and we can certainly submit that
Right.
for the record.
Have you done subsurface analysis
We
to, I
have
mean,
not.
material's good enough to hold up the extra weight?
It absolutely is based on the test pits that we found on record with the health department. It's all sand and gravel.
Okay, all right. The only issue I see right now that's still outstanding is you do need a letter of permission from the property owner to the north,
Why is that?
because you're within the setback required.
50 feet.
I
50
wasn't
feet?
aware of that, but we could certainly
There's a
work on that.
50-foot setback.
So this guy right
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we needed a letter from him saying it's okay to do this because you're gonna be constructing this embankment or this fill within 50 feet of his property.
I wasn't aware of that, but we'll work on that, certainly.
And we can't really go any further with this public hearing. We have to hold the public hearing open until next month,
Right.
because to bring this into record, we can't do it without the public hearing staying open, so.
So we need that in order to
we
close
need
this
that
public hearing?
by next month's meeting,
Okay,
because we can hold this public hearing over to next month, open, receive that letter, close it, unless somebody else, obviously, there's nobody else here to say anything against it, other than the commentary we got from Public Works on the condition of the roadway and what's gonna happen, but we'll take all that into consideration. We don't have to do that tonight, we can do it next.
With that being said, Gary, I would recommend, if this commission felt so inclined, since the public hearing will be open and it would be appropriate to gain this information, to possibly conduct something that we don't do often here, which is a site visit. Sorry, Rod?
What did you say?
Conducting a site visit. Since the public hearing will be open, that will be an appropriate time for this commission to go out to the property and get eyes on it. If this commission felt so inclined, that could be an operation that this office would schedule, and that would at least give an extra layer to what this commission will be reviewing and approving, because the site is challenging, the access is challenging, and I don't think that really comes across when you're looking at a plan like you're looking at here.
I haven't been on a site visit in a long time. So, yeah, we can set one up. Anybody, I mean, let's try to come up with a consensus when to go,
Yeah.
and we'll do it. All right, but definitely we need that letter before next month.
We will make sure we get that letter.
Yeah.
Just saying that there's no objection to the application, essentially.
Right now, no.
No, that's what the letter needs to say.
The letter is no, right.
And it's only the one letter, he only has one adjoining property owner, the other property is owned by the subject applicant, so.
Okay, all right.
And then the site walk, will you let us know?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
if-
let you know, definitely. You can,
And we'll be coordinating with the contacts that are in our file, which
Sure.
I believe
Yes,
is
me.
yourself. So really just having a back and forth with the property owner, letting him know the date and time that we kind of settle. If they'd like to be in attendance, that's perfectly okay, but just making sure that they're aware that
Sure.
both myself and a few commissioners will be showing up at a date and time to review the property.
Would it be beneficial if I was there as well?
oh, yeah,
Okay. I'll
in
make
case there's
sure.
any pertinent questions or.
You like coffee?
Would you like me to bring the coffee?
Well, hopefully it's not a day like today where it's cold and windy. Let's try to find a nice balmy day. I don't think so between now and next month, but whatever.
We can hope.
So, okay?
Thank you.
So between now and, let's try to find a good date and, we'll meet you out there
Very good.
and back next month. And hopefully we can wrap it up,
Sounds good.
okay?
Thank you very much
All
for
right,
your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next application 24361-Z, PDD number 8, amendment number 22, modification of detailed plans, 775 Main Street South.
First, I'm gonna apologize in advance, because first time I'm doing this.
Name and address.
I'm representing Regency, or Mitzi. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, so I didn't necessarily know that I had to prepare something. But anyway, part of it.
What's your name, sir?
Name and
Gre- I'm sorry, Greg Safari.
Thank you.
I work for a company called NYM Group. Okay.
Very
we've
good.
been- Well, myself personally have been managing the maintenance of that property over the past 10 years, ever since Equity One ended. Okay, sorry. Anyway, there's a space called, which I do have a photo of. Hopefully you can see that. Merle Norman used to be into that space, okay, and I believe that there was an exception prior to reduce the size of the letters. Merle Norman moved out, Foot Solutions is moving in, and they want to actually reduce the height of the letter size, I think from 15 pages, okay, to be able to put their name within that back, which is right there, which will, here's one, which is basically Chico's right down the other end of that same building, and you can see how big those letters are, but they also only have 5 or 6 letters to their name. So that's basically the point of that exception, is to get buy-in to that they're able to reduce the size. Which should look a lot better than what was approved for the nail place next to Starbucks.
I go there.
So I think it's a pretty simple thing. I thought I would, I have personally not seen the artwork, but supposedly the artwork will fit into that back. And again, by looking at that, you could see Michael's Jewelry, which is right next to it, has the larger banner, where in front of that space basically also has a smaller, sign band.
Yeah, I mean, that nail place really took us,
At least they're going smaller
back a little
instead of
bit.
bigger.
We do not want to see that again.
And I believe Earl Norman also had an exception to go smaller, because they had their entire name within that band, which was a lot more letters than.
Does the Regency Group is the owner?
Yes.
But you're from NYM Management?
Yes,
But you manage the properties?
yes.
Okay.
I've been actually on that site for 10 years now.
I've seen your trucks doing snow plowing, so okay. And landscaping. Does this place have a comprehensive sign program?
Just the regulations.
on these,
And I won't necessarily say that exactly. The 2021 modification was supposed to be a comprehensive sign plan. When that went through, the minimum lettering height of 15 inches and the maximum lettering height of 30 inches, in my opinion, is quite expansive and broad and really limits a smaller unit like this from accommodating the size necessary. But it's really just the regulations we have to go off of.
all right, what's, do you have a
Draft resolution?
a report?
No report, nope. From a basic standpoint, this was brought about because the maximum, or the minimum 15-inch lettering height was so limiting to many of the applicants. It's not just Foot Solutions. We dealt with PT for Life, which is an applicant who just came through this commission to get the physical therapy office opened. And there is also J. Crew and Border Spokes, all of which submitted sign proposals that in one way or another needed to be modified as a result of this regulation. In a lot of instances, increasing their size in order to accommodate these regulations. So the natural size for the signage that these applicants are intending to put forward isn't even this massive broadscape sign. It's actually something more natural with the actual development, but because of the limiting nature of the regulations, they're actually not able to get what they're looking for there.
Okay.
Usually people want bigger letters.
Yeah, I'm like, what, did I hear that right?
Well, it's a relatively small space.
Yes.
In comparison.
Yeah.
And the smaller ones look nice.
Yeah.
The big
Mhm.
ones, in my
Yeah.
opinion, often detract.
Yep.
And it's not anywhere near the nail sign.
Nope.
No.
The nail sign I can't speak to, but yeah.
I have to stop and look at that today. I never noticed it.
You never, how can you not notice it? The nail?
Me going into the nail or nail
Okay,
salon,
good.
pretty limited.
Anybody have any questions, the applicant?
Just one note. As you'll see in the resolution, we did refer this to planning, but as a result of the odd schedule that we incurred last month, zoning and planning kind of happened in the same week, or planning, I believe, was before zoning. So the referral couldn't go to planning in this normal cadence where we'd have a zoning meeting, the following week, planning would meet, and in that time, they'd get the referral, and before zoning meets again, they'd give a report back. 8-3A is adhered to so long as this commission submits that referral, sets the public hearing date, and if by that public hearing date, a report isn't received, then it's considered positive. So this commission has adhered to that requirement, but unfortunately, as a result of the weird scheduling, we don't have a report from planning.
So what you're saying, as with the previous public hearing, we have to hold this over the next month? And wait for-
No, because
We followed,
we followed through, and just based on the nature of the scheduling, planning has not yet met to draft a report and issue it to this commission. We are now eligible to move forward, accepting the non-report as a positive report.
okay. How does anybody feel about that?
Seems reasonable.
I mean, we can hold this over the next month and wait for the referral to come back from planning, just to cover ourselves. Or we can go ahead and,
This is Connecticut general statutes. In my opinion, you guys are covered, or this commission is covered. I will say there are some timing issues related to some of the tenants that have been looking to operate in this business. A lot of these applications have been essentially treading water while we work to clarify this, because this all came about as a result of signage applications getting submitted to my office and me throwing my hands up and going, I don't know how to address this without doing a modification, which is a 2-month process
right,
at a minimum.
all right, again,
Is it a, you're saying it's a constraint on their ability to do business?
Yes.
Okay.
Or at least open the business or operate within the business in a timely manner, because they've tried to submit applications back in September, November, and as a result of going back and forth, and then working with Regency to finally submit a petition to amend the regulations, then it starts the 2-month process. So
Is there a precedent for what you're recommending? Like, would we be setting precedent here, or is this something?
with
that's-
respect to
to
the planning
the-
referral,
Yeah,
no precedent would be set. No, it just happens to be a nature of the scheduling in the last 2 months, and that's just related to the holidays and how everything got shifted around as a result of the holidays.
Okay, so, but the bottom line is, it's really our call. Do we want, or do we need the input from planning for this? That's basically what we're looking for.
Yep.
what
I
has
mean,
been
if we
their
think,
historical?
we need their input, then yeah, we should hold it over. But if we don't, and again, I'm gonna refer back to you, Jordan, if you think that, since you are a town planner, the town planner, if you think it's okay just to move forward, I mean, what Regency is requesting is okay and, you know, follows everything that the intent of the whole PDD, I have no problem just going forward with it right now.
I'll kind of word this in the same regard as this commission would deal with a nonconformity, or the zoning board of appeals would deal with a nonconformity. When we're talking about a reduction, generally permissible. If this was an expansion of the regulations, I would whole cloth recommend that this commission hold off until planning commission got their report back. Their whole goal for that report is to look at the proposal and review it as it adheres to the plan of conservation and development. Generally, a plan that tries to limit expansive commercial developments where we can and adhere to a rural aesthetic throughout the town. In my opinion, a reduction in the size standards, both minimum
Going in
and
the right
maximum.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Now, is Regency going to formally apply to have this change, change the regulation for like future?
So what's before you right now is a formal petition to amend the PDD 8 regulations, just as it's related to this small portion of signage.
But this will be for the entire
Plaza.
Regency? All right,
The
not just
entire-
this one particular one?
Not just this one particular
Okay.
unit, correct. This applies to the entire plaza. So this applies to the Athleta unit, ShopRite, Warehouse Wine, Starbucks, Chico's, across the board. Any new development that wants to come in will also have to adhere to this standard. They wouldn't necessarily come into the zoning commission at that time because the standard would be set by this commission
Yeah.
moving forward. We wouldn't have to bring this back up because we actually have the guide rails and they're more aligned with what that plaza can, one, handle, and two, would be aesthetically pleasing to the area.
Sounds good.
No brainer.
That was my question,
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from Commissioner? Nothing? Anything more you want to say? All right, I have to open this up to the public. There's nobody here. So,
That's my only question, does that mean they could go forward?
well, we have to
Well,
vote on it
got
first.
there yet.
We have to close the public hearing and vote on it. So we're not done yet.
Stay right there.
Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on this?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're closed. Now, what do we want to do? Vote on it
I think we
in a positive way?
Oh, you guys are a lot tougher. I worked with retired four-star generals, done a lot of things in my past, and you guys are like tougher than them. At least them I understood.
All right, this resolution's fine? Okay. This is a resolution, PDD text modification amendment number 22, Southbury Green, PDD number 8, January 8th, 2025. Whereas on December 11th, 2024, the zoning commission received a petition from Regency Centers seeking to amend the PDD number 8 regulation text. Whereas this amendment would modify section 2.3.7E of PDD number 8 regulations related to signage. This amendment would reduce the minimum letter height for building signs from 15 inches to 8 inches. This amendment would also reduce the maximum letter height for building signs from 30 inches to 24 inches. Whereas the zoning commission referred the application to the Planning Commission on 12/12/24 for a report on this application conformance with the 2023 POCD. Regularly scheduled meetings for the zoning and planning commissions resulting from the holidays during the months of December and January are not staggered in the usual manner. A referral was sent to Planning Commission following the schedule of the public hearing by the zoning commission. Since this Planning Commission is not scheduled to meet until 1/21/25, a report was never received by the zoning commission before the scheduled public hearing per CGS 8-3A. The referral is hereby considered positive. Whereas a public hearing was held by the zoning commission on 1/8/25 and closed the same date, upon which time all information was presented and considered. Now therefore be resolved that the amendment number 22 to PDD number 8 signage regulations is approved, subject to the following administrative requirements. 1, 4 sets of full PDD regulation text shall be submitted for signature of the chairman of the zoning commission, adopted at a regular meeting of the zoning commission held January 8th, 2025, effective date of approval January 31, 2025. Do I hear approval to approve this resolution?
Is it time for a question?
Yes.
There's something here I hadn't realized about the maximum letter height. I think it probably is true, but there are no existing letter heights that would be exceeding the 24 inches right now.
So Rod, to answer your question, there will likely be signage that exceeds this standard. This would be the standard moving forward. All pre-existing signage would be considered non-conforming at this time, but would be allowed to remain. If they were to be modified or changed at any time, new signage for a tenant that is staying in that unit, but modifying their sign, would therefore have to adhere to this new section.
Okay. Do I still hear a motion to approve the resolution? Second? Any further discussion on this?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, you're approved.
Wow.
Effective
you very much.
date is the end of the year, end of the month.
Thank you.
I'll look forward to the second one.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
End of the month.
Dated the end of this month.
Approved at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Old business, discussion on request for proposal for comprehensive zoning regulation update. This is your,
All right, so as you are all aware, the request for proposal has been posted. Bids will be accepted at the Office of the First Selectman until 11 a.m. on February 6th. So we have officially kicked off the process of doing the comprehensive zoning regulation update, and we're going to be receiving proposals from prospective bidders coming in throughout the next month. When that's all set, there will be a bid opening procedure that we'll conduct, and we'll post public notice prior to that occurring. And if anyone has any questions, if anyone needs a copy of the RFP again, I'm happy to send that out. Additionally, I've sent Mark and Gary, yours were the only emails that kicked back a couple times. I tried to force it through, but wasn't able to. But I believe everyone else should have gotten a number of PDFs for various zoning regulations throughout municipalities in Connecticut. My intent for sending those to you was to essentially give you an idea of what similar towns are doing, or towns around Connecticut are doing, related to zoning regulations updates in the last 5 or 6 years. What they look like, how these things are being organized, the design standards that are being put in, graphics, flow, language, the whole nine. We're really going to be looking at our regulations from a comprehensive standpoint. We haven't done this, I don't think, really ever, really. It's been piecemealed up until now. My goal is to reduce inconsistencies, really get these things to be legible to anyone who wants to understand how to submit an application or open up a business in Southbury, and make it simply understood. So if anyone has any questions during the next month related to different regulations you're seeing from different towns, anything you want considered, if there's anything you've ever read in our regulations that was a sticking point, maybe it was something that was difficult to understand, or it never jived well, or if you think needs modification, that's really what we're gonna be discussing across the board when it comes to this project. It's gonna be a large project, and it's gonna take a lot of time. I look forward to working on this with everyone in this commission, and we're just gonna take it day by day. With that being said, Gary and I had met prior to this meeting just to, I requested that I sit down with him so he could clarify some of the questions that I was having related to some regulations. Would you like to open the discussion to that, Gary? Okay. So, as everyone knows, and as is evidenced by the applicant that came in for 33 Burma Road today, a lot of applications are gonna continue to come in, and we're seeing an outsized number of these things come in that are strictly focused on residential. And if it's not solely residential, it's some form of mixed-use residential. What I see in our regulations currently are inconsistencies related to density of those residents and what's allowed on sites. If you look at our plan of conservation and development, the POCD calls for roughly 4 units an acre, right? Right now, our regulations limit a dwelling unit to 15,000 square feet. So we're getting roughly 2.5 dwelling units per acre. So it was a question of whether or not we wanted to take the time early on in the process of, we're about to kick off this regulation update. However, there are various applicants that are looking to start the process of getting, whether it's a PDD for residential, cluster developments, multifamily, or a PDU of something similar to that. Is this a project or something that really this commission is willing to undertake right now, prior to the regulation update really getting kicked off, to better adjust those standards to be less restrictive and allow for increased density, not absolutely wild density, but allow for alleviation of the restrictive regulations that we've experienced today? Or is this something that, isn't really a project that's worth this commission's time? That was more or less the discussion. Gary, if you want to chime in on anything.
My feeling is, there are people coming into town, developers coming into town that are really stuck with the regulation as written now, and it doesn't really help them out to develop what they want to develop, and I think in a positive way for the town of Southbury. To wait for this comprehensive rewrite, that could take years. So I think we're gonna be missing the boat with some of these developers, usable by them. Doesn't mean that when the comprehensive is done at the end of, say, 2 or 3 years from now, I don't know how long it's gonna take. What we do now can be changed for the final document, but I think to try to help some of these people out, it's only gonna help Southbury in the long run.
With that being said, I've done some research, and the requirement of 1 dwelling unit per 15,000 square feet has been consistent since the 70s. So, looking through a lot of the documentation of our early PDDs, things like the greenhouse development on Old Waterbury Road, you've seen those kind of tiered condo units up on Old Waterbury Road. Similarly, if you've ever been down Southford Road, you've seen the Farview Commons. Seem to be written in a way that limited and avoided a lot of those types of developments. However, we're really seeing Southbury from an affordability standpoint and just from a variety of housing standpoint. With that being said, I agree with Gary in the sense that if we were to address some of these smaller issues, it may result in 3 developers coming in. It may result in absolutely no developers coming in. The modifications we may or may not make could entice it, or it could still be just as restrictive as before, just with a small levity to what the regulations currently allow.
The affordable housing, now, it's like, say with these multi-dwellings, does the occupants have to own that for that to count towards that, or is it rental?
When we're talking specifically affordable housing,
Yeah.
the units are often owned by the landlord and deed restricted for specific timeframes and for
So if it was a
specific.
multiple, I guess my question is, if it's a multiple, say a landlord owns 4 in this one dwelling, would that count as 4 affordable houses, or would that count as one?
They would be, so if each unit in one structure, if there were 4 dwelling units, individual dwelling units, whether 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, or 1-bedroom, if each of those dwelling units had a deed restriction, then they would all be considered individual dwelling units that would apply to our affordable housing count. And I've always made the disclaimer, I don't see Southbury frankly ever hitting our affordable housing percentage numbers. I think the real focus for Southbury moving forward has been and will hopefully continue to be, as developments arise naturally, as market conditions entice certain developments, we are always asking the question, what are you willing to offer as far as affordability? And that is kind of a sticking point, the same way aesthetics has been a sticking point for this commission when it comes to a PDD. If you're willing to work with this commission, then they're willing to work with you. Similar with affordable housing. If you're willing to make a concession, then commissions are willing to kind of have a conversation with you. I'm also of the opinion that a variety of housing also increases affordability. Deed restricted is just deed restricted for a time. Once it's no longer deed restricted, it all goes back to market rate. However, having a variety of housing naturally reduces housing costs in an area because people have options. It's not just a single-family colonial home anymore. You now have apartments, you now have single, 2-bedroom. You can move from a larger area to a small area and still live in the same town, which is a issue that a lot of people are experiencing. If we want to see more multifamily dwelling groups like this that appear to be what developers are hungry for, it may be time for this commission to take into consideration modifying some of these limiting factors with our PDD regulations, because it'll still allow this commission to get what they want from a development. They'll still have to adhere to all the requirements of the PDD, but at least they would find some, grace when it came to the actual dwelling unit per lot, which ends up being the biggest market condition when someone's trying to value whether or not this is going to be a viable option for them.
Do we have a set list of the issues that have come up, that have presented challenges? Which part of the regulation have we identified some set that we can look at as a commission, for this change that you're talking, that we're discussing right now?
Yeah,
So these are like the 10 things that all the time they come up and they create an obstacle to whatever obstacle we're solving for.
So there's been a running document in my office that's essentially Post-it notes all over the place, writing all over the regulations, just calling things out as inconsistencies, simple language changes, simple typo errors, things like that. But is this something that we're getting an outsized number of calls for? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that people are complaining about Section 8 being.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So I wasn't really talking about, Jordan, things that people are complaining about. I was talking about obstacles that are created based on the way the regulations are written now, that are sort of like our top 10 things that come up again and again as obstacles that, as Gary was saying, we need to address. Do we know what those are, or are we saying this is so wide that we only will know when they come up again and then we can look at it? Or how we identified a historical pattern that we need to look at right now as a priority?
I would say a lot of the issues that I've personally come up with is trying to navigate the regulations where, let's say you're in section 12 and it asks you to go to section 14. 14.6.3 might not even exist, right? So I'm having personal difficulty navigating our regulations so that I can effectively do my job. Similarly, I find some of the sections to be just untenable. I don't have a lighting degree, so reading section 11 almost seems impossible for me. With that also being said, what I've seen is a lot of significant improvements on other people's regulations. So if you wanted me to draft something akin to an itemized list of kind of specific needs, I'd be happy to do that. But off the top of my head, I don't think I'd be able to accurately give you an answer.
Well, I think you kind of answered my question, so it's all over the place.
Okay,
It's all,
yeah, in my opinion, yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't want to give you extra work, no. I'm just saying, it's all over the place. I just thought what we were getting was, here it comes again, this thing is presenting a problem, here's this one, but what you're saying is, it's so disjointed that, you know.
what about the discussion we had before, where the POCD is a document that's revised every 10 years, all right? And the new one just came out. How do our zoning regulations fit into the POCD? Or do they not? Or are there issues? And there are some issues, we know that. So we should take a hard look to make sure that the crossing over from one document to the other, I mean, the POCD has to be done every 10 years by state law. And we spend a lot of time and money putting the document together. Zoning regulations come and go at our will, as we approve it, as the commission members approve it. So we should probably take a hard look at, do we conform to the POCD? And this is one of the issues. Density, I think, is one of the issues we've had. Our density under PDD, PDU do not match the POCD.
Currently.
So we should at least try to make our regulation conform to the POCD. It's that type of thing, I think, that maybe you're looking for.
Yeah, I really was trying to understand where, you know, sort of where the priority issues are, right? So if we're gonna tackle something that we know is really something that has a longer, you know, period to resolution, but we're going to do this initial patch to make things better, what are those things that we need to look at? So in my mind, I like I said, I thought we have already identified them because there are things that constantly repeat, but based on what we're hearing, so there are a couple of issues. There are these, you know, like you're trying to cross-reference from something you're reading to something that it's referencing, and when you go to find the reference, it doesn't even exist. Well, to me, that's like, okay, that's an obvious low-hanging fruit. Let's fix that right away,
Right.
so you can not have this madness in the way you're trying to do your research and resolve issues. And then, as Gary, you know, just indicated, if we now have the POCD and now we are like totally out of compliance with that, then that's an immediate,
Right.
you know, we're identifying an immediate, you know, problem.
I also suggested to Jordan that he's had some inquiries from outside developers or some people who want to do things in town, but the regulations don't quite say what they want to do. Perhaps it'd be good to get them in here to talk to us about it, to see how it would benefit the town of Southbury to do what they want to do. Again, I mean, we have the authority as a commission to write and make law our regulations, and I want to make sure it's done right and done in an equitable way for anybody who wants to come in and do something that's going to help the town of Southbury do it without any major hassle. Right now, there are some issues.
I will also say, Gary, during our discussion, I love working with this commission. I think this is a fantastic commission. I think everyone on it provides really valuable insight to applications. However, you could all leave in 2 years. If the regulations are such that it provides, you know, too much flexibility, I can't control what this commission does. The regulations really are those guiding posts. So if these things become too broad, then we could be really hurting ourselves on the back end if we have a different sentiment or goal or idea with this commission. We never know, who knows what could happen overnight. With that being said, the regulations are there for a specific reason. I would love things to be improved from construction phase standpoints. I'd love things to be improved from a visual standpoint. I'd love people to have a diagram and an understanding. That way, in my office, I don't have to constantly train people on what erosion controls are and hold people's hands through these very simple ideas that can just be elaborated in a very legible manner in our zoning regulations. I think these things can really be improved across the board. And that's not to just say, you know, fixing inconsistencies, but really building them out in a way that if any person, layman or engineered contractors, want to come in, they can take these, sit down with them, and understand where they have to go, what they need to do, and it's not such a scary process for them. Because right now, these things tend to be kind of a barrier to entry for someone trying to conduct business or modify a property or whatever the case is.
Jordan, those towns that have already completed their process, do you have an idea how long it actually took from start to finish?
I don't.
Okay.
I frankly
I'm
don't.
just curious.
I'd be happy to kind
Woodbury
of,
has been at it for a long time.
Yeah, but there's like 4 other towns, or maybe if you can just,
bit of
yeah,
poke,
just at least
poke
get an
around on
idea,
that.
if it's 3 years, 2 years, I mean, how long they took to get, you know,
Yeah.
get to that point.
Well, I think some of the experience that I've had, it's been a long haul, years. But I think the way we're going about it, by hiring a professional to do the major groundwork and set the basis of how we're gonna go forward on it, will help expedite the process. I mean, let's face it, we're not all professionals in this business. We're lucky to sometimes understand our own regulations. But the regulations is what we have to go to make our decision. So we have to make sure that it's legible, it's understandable, it's easy for anybody to pick up and decide, do I want to come to Southbury or not? And right now, it's not the best, believe me.
Selfishly, the idea of planning and advising this town from my role while also being tightly involved in the process of doing a regulation update sets me up very advantageously to fully understand from the ground up what these regulations are, their intent, their purpose, how to enforce them, how to guide, how to advise across the board. Being on the ground floor of this project, from a selfish standpoint, really benefits me. But I think across the board, it's going to benefit not only anyone looking to do business or live or work in this town, but also this commission, and just being able to understand applications and better be able to handle these things as they come in. We're dealing with the soil extraction for the first time in, when was the last time this commission dealt with a soil extraction application? I'm sure you're reading Section 8 as I reported it to you, probably for the first time in a long time. It's kind of one of the regulations that strictly pertain to you as it's related to residential properties, and I'd love it if it was more legible. I'd love it if it was better understood and it wasn't so
Lawyerly?
And by the way, the lead.
I wasn't looking directly at you two, but
No,
it was
but
actually
listen,
like,
No, not me, but that there is if you read the ADA, there's an entire effort in the law to make it more approachable and understandable. And there is a federal Clear Writing Act, which says we have these cumbersome federal statutes and nobody can understand them. So your pain is not in a silo. It is generally known that, these legal writings are not user-friendly.
Right.
So I hear you loud and clear.
It would be nice if we could
And
just
so
come
does
up,
my co-counsel.
like with a list of like, what would keep a contractor from wanting to come to Southbury? I mean, if we can come up with like a list of that.
I think right now, as we discussed previously, the PDD, PDU section is probably the one section that we need to tackle right now, okay, before this comprehensive new regulation comes into play. So I'm gonna suggest that maybe Jordan take a crack at that section and see how you think it, based upon discussions you've had with various developers, builders, people who wanna come to town, and how it matches up with the POCD.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to change in the language. This is something that, it's not a huge section, okay? But it's something that we can do now to help entice people to come in and do it right. And make money. I mean, nobody's gonna come into town if they're not gonna make money on this thing. And if we have a regulation that's just so cumbersome, nobody wants to go. Let's try to at least get that going. And if it's gotta change, once the big regulation gets done in 2 years, then it gets changed. But right now, if we think we can go forward, again, this is a whole public hearing process, so it's not gonna be done next month.
Yeah.
But we need to get the ball rolling on this, I think. So, Jordan, if you don't mind.
Happy to.
Happy New Year.
Well, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I mean, if the thing says section, as shown in section 14, and no section 14 exists, like, that's just an obvious cleanup. Do you know what I mean? I hear your frustration. Hate legal research.
And that's where the document with all the writing and post-it notes and everything, yeah, you've seen those boards where the ribbon and everything, that's me in the land use department trying to figure out these regulations.
Call it Jordan's jargons.
All right. I guess, let's move on.
All right.
Other business, any correspondence? No? Zoning enforcement officers report? Nothing? Good. Minutes from last meeting, do I hear any issues? No? Do we wanna
Look fine to me.
approve them tonight, or hold off till next month?
Yeah, I think we can approve.
Yeah, let's
Yeah. I mean, you want to. What? No, I'm saying, I think we have enough people to approve it.
All right, do we hear a motion to approve them? Nobody wants to say anything.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th, 2024 meeting.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done. Any bills or receipts or? No, we don't have any bills. Okay, so I guess we're done. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn? No, formally. Okay, second?
Seconds.
All right, all those opposed? I mean,
Aye.
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All those
We already did it.
Okay, whatever.
On your car, I'd suggest doing it now.
That's so true. Thank you for that.
I'll see you on the way out.
David, how are you?
Yeah, but yeah.
I'm finding it very entertaining to follow your geese up and down the road. And so is everybody else. I'm so shocked to see all the idiots that go by my house on her mouse stop and just follow the geese down. It just cracks me up. And I never think to pull my phone out and videotape them. You know? It's like, I should. So how's everything over at the farm? Everything cool? Yeah. My poor little nephew, he's out there freezing his nuts off on the property. And he has got, doesn't even see what they're.
Yeah.
Well, he did. He saw one little one. He's like, he's such a sweetie. He's like, I felt really bad for it. I didn't shoot it. I was like, you better stick to fishing, Nick. You know, you don't have an attachment to the bass you pull on. They don't have big, doughy eyes. You know.
I stopped putting a couple of years, 20 years ago.
What's that?
I didn't like hunting much anymore, so.
Nah. No, I haven't hunted. Actually, since well, when I lived on a farm, that was it.